That line alone set the tone. And from there, this story exploded fast. What started as another royal internet rumor suddenly turned into something way darker, way more personal, and way harder to ignore. We are not talking about another petty palace feud, another recycled tabloid fight, or another flashy headline that disappears in 2 days. This time, the center of the storm is a woman who says she was there for it all. The late nights, the crying, the feeding, the tiny everyday moments no camera ever saw. And now, after staying quiet for what she says was far too long, she has stepped forward with claims that have sent social media into total meltdown. Her name is Elena Ramirez. And if her account is even partly true, then this is not just gossip anymore. This is one of the most disturbing Sussex controversies in years. According to the story now tearing across the internet, Elena was not a reporter, not a royal commentator, not some fame-hungry influencer chasing clicks. She was, by all accounts, a middle-aged Mexican nanny who worked inside the Sussex household in Montecito for more than a year and a half. She says she helped care for little Lilibet from the earliest days. The diaper changes, the 3 a.m. feedings, the sleepless nights, the moments when a baby would not settle and needed calm, patience, and love. And that is exactly why people are paying attention. Because the question hanging over this whole mess is brutally simple. Why would a woman with no big platform, no brand deal, no publicist, and everything to lose suddenly step into the spotlight with allegations this explosive? Elena says the answer is guilt. Not revenge, not money, not attention. Guilt. She says she could no longer live with what she allegedly saw, and that staying silent made her feel complicit. That is the part that changed this story from royal chatter into something far more serious for a lot of people online. When Elena finally appeared publicly in a live stream hosted by Samantha Markle, she did not look like someone enjoying the attention. By descriptions of the broadcast, she looked drained, tense, and emotionally worn down. Her hands were clenched, her eyes were heavy, and her voice reportedly shook, but she kept talking anyway. She said she loved Lilibet like her own child. She said she had rushed in during moments of distress. She described, according to her account, a home that slowly changed as schedules got busier, projects multiplied, and the little girl's cries allegedly went unanswered for longer and longer stretches. Now, to be fair, Elena is still one person with one version of events. That matters. But what made this blow up even more was that she did not just come forward with words. She claimed there was a trail behind those words, and before her interview even aired, the internet had already been hit with the thing that truly lit the match: an audio clip. It showed up on an anonymous X account and spread like wildfire before most people had even had breakfast. Within hours, millions had heard it. Talk shows started scrambling, podcasts started going live, and every comment section turned into a war zone. The clip itself was short, but the reaction was massive. A woman's voice, cold and irritated, was allegedly heard saying she never would have had her daughter if it were not to hold on to her husband, and that the child needed to be removed because she was annoying. Now, let's be careful here. The voice was not definitively verified. The source was anonymous, and audio forensics are never simple. Those are facts, and they matter. But that did not stop the internet from doing what it always does, drawing conclusions at lightning speed. And the timing made everything even messier. The clip surfaced right as Meghan had reportedly announced a new Netflix deal worth tens of millions, centered on documentaries and inspirational content. Just days earlier, she had been speaking publicly about motherhood, balance, family, and the beautiful chaos of raising children. Then suddenly this clip lands, and the contrast was so sharp that people online did not know what to do with it except tear into it from every angle. Some called it fake, some called it damning. Others said the detail, the tone, and what came afterward made it impossible to dismiss so easily. That is where this story really starts burning. Because in an era where audio can be manipulated and fake accounts can spark global chaos overnight, one question still cuts through all the noise. Does the possibility of fabrication automatically kill the allegation? Or do the details that followed make this something much harder to brush off? That question is exactly why the world kept watching, and why this story was only just getting started. Before Elena Ramirez ever appeared publicly, another element of the story had already exploded across the internet: a short audio clip. The recording first surfaced on an anonymous account on X, formerly Twitter, and within hours it had spread across social media platforms, talk shows, and podcasts. The clip was brief, only a few seconds long, but the words in it sparked intense debate. In the recording, a woman's voice can be heard speaking in a frustrated tone, allegedly saying she would not have had her daughter if it were not necessary to keep her husband, and complaining that the child was annoying and should be taken out of the room. The voice was never officially confirmed, and audio verification can be extremely complicated. The recording came from an anonymous source, and experts often caution that clips like this can be edited, manipulated, or taken out of context. Still, many listeners believed the distinctive mix of British and American accents sounded familiar, which quickly fueled speculation online. The timing only intensified the reaction. The clip surfaced just as Meghan had reportedly signed a major new Netflix deal centered on documentaries and inspirational content. Only days earlier, she had spoken publicly about motherhood and balancing family life with her career. Once the audio spread, the internet reacted instantly. Millions of people listened to the clip, and discussion exploded across comment sections and news programs. In the court of public opinion, the debate moved faster than any verification process could keep up. The central question quickly became unavoidable. Was the recording manipulated, or was it something more serious? At that moment, no one could answer for certain, but the controversy was already growing. And then Samantha Markle stepped into the story, introducing a witness who would push the entire situation into a far bigger scandal. The moment those hospital documents appeared online, the tone of the entire story changed dramatically. Until that point, many parts of the controversy could still be debated or dismissed. Audio recordings can be manipulated, videos can be edited, and personal testimonies can be challenged or interpreted in different ways. Medical documents, however, carry a different level of perceived credibility because they appear official, structured, and tied to real-world institutions. During a live stream broadcast, Samantha Markle presented what she described as a scanned hospital admission record from a well-known pediatric hospital in California. According to her explanation, the date on the document placed the event more than a year before the controversy surrounding the Sussex household began dominating headlines. The reason for admission was listed as severe abdominal pain, and the patient named in the document was identified as Lilibet, who would have been just 1 year old at the time. What immediately captured public attention, however, was the name listed as the responsible adult who brought the child to the hospital. Samantha stated that the signature on the admission form belonged to Elena Ramirez. According to the account being presented, the paperwork was not signed by Meghan or Harry, but by the family's nanny. While presenting the document, Samantha became visibly emotional as she described how she said the situation unfolded. She explained that Elena had called her in a state of panic after attempting repeatedly to contact both parents without success. The child, she said, appeared to be in significant pain, and the situation required immediate action. Samantha claimed that the two of them rushed Lilibet to the hospital together, and because no parent was present to complete the formal paperwork, Elena signed the admission documents herself. Samantha then introduced another piece of material she described as supporting evidence. She displayed screenshots of text messages that she said were exchanged between Elena and Meghan on the same day as the hospital visit. According to Samantha's presentation, Elena had sent a message explaining that Lilibet was in serious pain and that they were taking her to the hospital immediately. The response attributed to Meghan was brief, reportedly stating that she was on set and asking to be updated later. For critics of the Sussexes, that exchange quickly became the most controversial detail in the entire narrative. Social media platforms filled with intense reactions, and comment sections across multiple news outlets exploded with debate. Even some observers who had previously dismissed earlier allegations paused to reconsider the situation. The story being circulated online now described a 1-year-old child experiencing severe pain, an emergency hospital visit taking place, and neither parent being reachable during the incident. In this version of events, the nanny became the person responsible for handling the medical admission, while the parents remained unavailable. Legal analysts who weighed in on the discussion emphasized one central issue: authenticity. If the hospital record were genuine, they explained, it could become a significant piece of evidence in any potential legal dispute. Official documents issued by recognized institutions often carry considerable weight in court because they are tied to regulated systems of record keeping. At the same time, the opposite possibility also remained important. If the document were fabricated, altered, or presented without full context, the expected response would typically involve swift legal action aimed at disproving the claim. In cases involving high-profile public figures, such responses often include lawsuits, independent forensic examinations, and detailed legal statements challenging the authenticity of the evidence. In this situation, observers noticed something different unfolding. Several days passed after the document appeared online, yet no immediate lawsuit was filed against Samantha Markle. There was no publicly released forensic rebuttal addressing the document, and no visible legal action targeting Elena Ramirez in the immediate aftermath. Supporters of Meghan and Harry argued that the silence did not imply acceptance of the claims. From their perspective, responding publicly could have amplified what they believed to be a coordinated smear campaign, giving further attention to accusations they consider unfounded. Skeptics, however, interpreted the lack of immediate legal action in a very different way. For them, the absence of a rapid response became part of the story itself. In the modern media environment, silence often becomes open to interpretation. It can reflect caution, legal strategy, or a deliberate decision to avoid escalating a public dispute. At the same time, when controversies involve serious allegations and widely circulated documents, a lack of response can also fuel speculation among audiences already searching for answers. As the debate intensified and online discussion grew more heated, a new development began circulating among royal commentators and insider sources. Reports suggested that behind palace walls, Prince Harry had quietly initiated contact with the institution he had once stepped away from. That possibility introduced an entirely new dimension to the story, shifting attention from the hospital documents toward a much larger question about the future relationship between Harry, his family, and the monarchy itself. As the debate over the hospital documents intensified, attention began shifting toward a development that few people expected. While the internet remained focused on accusations, evidence, and speculation, reports started circulating among royal commentators that Prince Harry had quietly begun reaching out to the palace. According to several insiders familiar with internal discussions, the communication did not take the form of public statements or legal threats. Instead, it reportedly happened through a more traditional royal channel. Private correspondence delivered directly to senior palace officials. What made the situation particularly striking was the tone of the message that Harry was said to have sent. Sources claim that Harry acknowledged, in writing, that his use of royal styling during a recent unofficial visit to Canada had created confusion about his relationship with the crown. He reportedly accepted that the appearance had placed Buckingham Palace in a difficult position diplomatically and publicly. Rather than challenging the institution, he is said to have recognized that his actions had complicated matters for the monarchy. This was not described as a casual apology or a brief note attempting to smooth over tension. According to people familiar with the communication, the language used was formal and precise, reflecting the kind of constitutional language the palace expects when matters of royal status and responsibility are involved. In other words, the discussion was not simply about repairing a family disagreement. It touched on something far more complicated: the legal and institutional framework that defines who represents the monarchy and under what conditions. Royal constitutional experts quickly pointed out that any change to Harry's position inside the royal structure would involve more than a simple welcome back. Reinstating even a limited royal role would require clear boundaries and formal agreements about responsibilities. Analysts suggested that such an arrangement would almost certainly include strict conditions. Those conditions could involve clearly defined royal duties, limitations on commercial activities connected to royal branding, and restrictions on public statements about the monarchy or other members of the royal family. The institution, after years of highly public disagreements, would likely insist on clear rules designed to prevent future conflicts. That possibility raised an important question that many observers immediately began asking. If the palace were willing to consider reopening the door, would Harry be prepared to accept the responsibilities and restrictions that come with it? Returning to an official royal role would not simply mean regaining status or recognition. It would also mean accepting the expectations and obligations that the monarchy believes should always accompany that position. For someone who had spent several years publicly criticizing aspects of the institution, such a shift would represent a significant personal and public decision. Another layer of complexity involved Meghan. Any change to Harry's role would inevitably affect the life the couple had built outside the royal system. Over the past several years, they had created a brand centered on independence, media production, and humanitarian work outside the structure of the monarchy. Accepting formal limitations tied to royal status could place restrictions on that entire framework. At the same time, palace officials would also need to consider the internal dynamics of the royal family itself. Reintroducing Harry into a more official position would affect relationships with other senior royals, particularly Prince William, whose role as the future king places him at the center of long-term institutional planning. Royal watchers began paying close attention to three signals that might reveal whether these discussions were truly taking place. The first involved Harry's own public tone. If he continued to reference the palace in a conciliatory way rather than a critical one, analysts believed it might suggest ongoing communication behind the scenes. The second signal involved King Charles. Even subtle remarks from the monarch about family unity, reconciliation, or institutional stability could hint at internal conversations that had not yet become public. The third signal, however, was considered the most significant of all. Observers were watching Prince William. If the Prince of Wales were seen publicly with Harry in any setting, even a brief appearance, it could instantly reset the entire narrative surrounding the royal family. For now, none of those signals had clearly appeared. Publicly, the palace maintained its familiar silence, offering no confirmation and no denial of any behind-the-scenes discussions. Yet within royal circles, the possibility alone was enough to change the conversation. After years of conflict, interviews, and distance, the idea that Harry might be attempting to reconnect with the institution he once left behind introduced a new and uncertain chapter in the story of the modern monarchy. While the conversation about Harry's possible outreach to the palace continued quietly in royal circles, another development began drawing intense attention from insiders. This time, the focus shifted away from private letters and family reconciliation and toward a document that reportedly landed on the desk of Prince William. According to several palace sources, Harry's legal team had submitted a detailed file directly to Clarence House and other senior royal offices. The document was not a short request or a personal appeal. It was a comprehensive dossier stretching across more than 70 pages, carefully assembled and organized to address one of the most sensitive questions surrounding the Sussex family. At the center of that file was a straightforward objective. Harry's team wanted Archie and Lilibet formally recognized again as full members of the royal family structure. That recognition would involve restoring certain titles, protections, and official status that had gradually become uncertain after the Sussexes stepped away from royal duties and moved to the United States. Sources familiar with the situation described the dossier as a legal package designed to remove every possible doubt surrounding the children's place within the monarchy. Inside were documents that Harry's team believed could settle the matter permanently. One of the key pieces reportedly included in the file was a genetic paternity test conducted by a certified laboratory in California. According to the sources describing the document, the test confirmed Harry as the biological father of Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. Alongside that report, the file allegedly contained a sworn affidavit from Meghan detailing the timeline of her pregnancy in precise chronological order. The document was said to outline medical appointments, travel schedules, and other supporting information, covering the months between 2018 and Archie's birth in 2019. The dossier also reportedly included ultrasound records provided by a Beverly Hills obstetrician who had been involved in Meghan's prenatal care. Additional pages contained a notarized statement from a staff member connected to Portland Hospital in London, the facility where Archie was officially registered as having been born. According to individuals who claimed to have seen portions of the file, each piece of documentation had been selected to address specific rumors that had circulated online for years. Questions about pregnancy timelines, speculation about surrogacy, and other theories had created persistent controversy around the legitimacy of the Sussex children's place in the line of succession. The strategy behind the submission appeared straightforward. Harry's legal team hoped that presenting detailed medical records, sworn statements, and laboratory results would bring the speculation to a definitive end. If the palace accepted the documentation as valid, the expectation was that Archie and Lilibet would once again be treated as fully recognized royal children. That recognition could potentially reopen the institutional doors that had gradually closed after the family relocated to Montecito. However, the response from William's office reportedly did not unfold in the way Harry's team may have expected. Instead of immediately reviewing the file privately and offering a quiet decision, insiders say Prince William reacted with a level of caution that surprised even some senior aides. According to those accounts, he ordered the immediate involvement of a small internal advisory body responsible for examining matters related to royal lineage and succession. This group, sometimes described by royal historians as a succession review panel, includes legal experts, archivists, and constitutional advisors. Their role is to examine documentation whenever questions arise about matters connected to the monarchy's bloodline or the legal framework of succession. Within hours of the dossier arriving, sources say William's office issued what insiders later described as a temporary freeze on any discussion about reintegrating Archie into formal royal status. The explanation provided internally pointed to what were described as serious irregularities and contradictions that needed further investigation before any decision could be made. That phrase quickly became the most discussed element of the entire development. What exactly those irregularities were remained unclear. No official list of concerns was released publicly, and palace representatives declined to provide further comment when journalists began asking questions. Yet the mere suggestion that discrepancies existed inside a carefully prepared legal file immediately reignited speculation across the media landscape. For supporters of the Sussexes, the move looked like an unnecessary delay that kept the children caught in the middle of institutional politics. Critics, on the other hand, argued that the monarchy had no choice but to examine every detail carefully because questions about royal lineage carry constitutional implications far beyond personal family disputes. As the dossier continued moving through quiet, internal review, one reality became increasingly clear to royal observers. The debate had now moved beyond personal accusations and public arguments. As the internal review continued behind palace walls, the public conversation surrounding the Sussex family began shifting once again. What had started as a swirl of accusations, leaked recordings, and disputed documents was now evolving into a deeper question about the future relationship between Prince Harry, his children, and the monarchy itself. Royal analysts noted that institutions built on centuries of tradition rarely move quickly, especially when decisions could affect matters connected to lineage and succession. Every document, claim, and piece of supporting evidence would need careful examination before any official conclusion could be reached. At the center of the situation stood Prince Harry. For years, he had framed his life in California as a new beginning outside the royal system. Yet the reported dossier suggested that his connection to the monarchy had never fully disappeared. Whether driven by concern for his children's future or a desire to clarify their status, the attempt to present documentation indicated that the relationship between Harry and the crown remains unresolved. Inside the palace, the stakes were equally significant. King Charles must balance family dynamics with his responsibility to protect the stability of the monarchy, while Prince William, as the future king, carries the long-term duty of safeguarding the royal line. If the documents ultimately satisfy palace advisors, they could open a path toward limited reconciliation and formal recognition of Archie and Lilibet within the royal structure. If questions remain, the distance between the Sussex family and the monarchy may continue. For now, the outcome remains uncertain. Behind closed doors, decisions are still being weighed, leaving the future of Harry's connection to the royal family one of the most closely watched and unresolved stories in modern royal history.